Hey everybody, Coach here. Hey, thanks for joining with me this week. This week's weather, if you didn't catch the short here recently, has been rather tumultuous. We've had weather in the teens with driving snow. We have had 70s almost a week ago, and then it dipped down. And now we've got clear skies and frigid temps. So Coach is not going to be out here that long. But this week's episode, I want to cover the top 5 questions I've been asked as a landscape professional over the years that may help you if you happen to have a glitch in your horticultural matrix and are trying to get over on something that maybe isn't quite working for you. So once again, I'm glad you're here. We're going to have a chat and talk right here off the iPad today, just so that I can refer to some of the notes that I took, and I hope you don't mind. Anyway, let's get this thing rolling. Hey, I'm Matt. You can call me Coach. Every Friday, I bring with me landscape DIY education, concepts and theories, ideas and solutions, so you guys can go out and tackle a landscape project yourself, get professional results, save a whole lot of money in the process, and in this day and age, be a lot more self-reliant. Man, after a 20-plus year career in the green industry, I'm bringing with me a lot of knowledge and experience that I want to share with you guys, the new, modern, educated, self-reliant homeowner of today. You know, every profession, probably yours as well, when you have some expertise in a particular field, you'll usually draw something of a small crowd every once in a while, maybe in the lunchroom, maybe at a party, maybe at a family get-together or reunion, because they know you know something about that topic. And I've had that quite a few times over my career, where people say, "Hey, Coach, I can't," and here's the questions that I've been asked. Not in any particular order, but number 1 is, "Hey, why is my such and such dying?" And they would promptly trot you over to their such and such, and you would look at it. Most of the time, especially in-ground plantings, it's usually always water related, one way or another. And when I say that is people tend 80% of the time to always give plant material way too much water, way too much, especially for the soil conditions that are present. If you have a heavy loam or a heavy clay loam soil and drainage is kind of iffy, then oftentimes those plants that require a little bit of drying out in between, say like California lilac, which I did for Plant of the Week right here, they don't last very long. You'll see them start to yellow out and drop leaves and thin, and that's a sheer sign that things are a little too wet. Same with things like emerald manzanita and other type of plants that like to kind of dry out, and when they do get water, it's a deep, infrequent style of watering, and then they get to dry just a bit. You know, most of the time, a plant has a voice. You may not think it does, but it has a voice. It's a silent voice. When they are unhappy, they will scream at you in no uncertain terms. Here's a classic example of what I've seen over the years, is when something wilts, gotta give it more water. Gotta give it more water. Look at it, it's wilting. And oftentimes the wilting is a result of too much water. So when you have, say, like 6 or 7 somethings that you've planted, and then one of them in that group of somethings dies or is dying, people always think right out of the gate to throw more water on it. And oftentimes if you go out there and do that old second knuckle test, dig down just a little bit and see at that second knuckle, if you still have moisture at the second knuckle, what do you think is down 12, 18 inches? A lot more water. So oftentimes it is not that. What I'd really like you to check is the planting depth of that one particular plant that's struggling. Oftentimes we dig good holes, we do everything we're supposed to do, but then it tends to settle, maybe more than the others that are right next to it. It settles and the mulch and soils tend to build up around the base of that trunk of that plant, bring in other things like crown rot and not being able to breathe through that crown of the plant, and hence its demise. So check your planting depth. The second question I used to get asked is, how come I can't get my so-and-so to grow here? Look at it. Now my neighbor down the street has the same plant and their so-and-so is doing great. Mine is struggling and even dying on one side. Coach, what did I do wrong? How can I change this? Many times it is not the plant that is the problem, but rather the selector of the plant, meaning you. Just because a neighbor down the street is successful with their particular whatever such and such plant does not mean yours is going to be. Maybe you have decided to put it on a northern shady side and it only gets maybe 4 hours of sun a day, but it requires 8 to 10 or full sun dawn to dusk. That's the difference between your neighbor down the street and your yard and the selection you've made and the location that you've decided to put it in. Many times we see plants at the nursery and we just go gaga. I have been guilty of that many hundreds of times over in my lifetime. I love this plant. Oh my God, I got to have this plant. And I get it. And then once I get it, then I go, okay, now where am I going to put it? Well, one of the things that I was taught many years ago is you may see a plant that you like. Then that's the time where you pump the brakes, check out the needs of that particular plant, and then mentally ruminate while you're still at the nursery and you haven't thrown your card down just yet. Look at it and say, okay, I have an area in my yard that is custom made for that. Or you go, dang, I don't have an area for that. Or maybe it's going to be a container plant where I can move it and place it where the needs of that plant will be met. A couple of options and a couple of thoughts. The other thing is the technical aspect of the planting technique that you used to put that plant in the ground. If you use that 4 corners of plant success, hole size, soil amendment, food, and depth, you will end up with planting success 99% of the time, provided that your location was correct to begin with. Okay, another question that I used to always get, and that was about sprinkler or irrigation systems. Lots of times when I went on design consultations or redesigning or repairs, that kind of thing, I would get the questions of, you know, most of my irrigation, and oh, by the way, coach, I did this myself. And I would go, 2 thumbs up, I'm glad you took it on. He said, but this particular zone over here, I don't know, I put them in about 5 years ago and here, let me turn it on for you. And I would look at it and it would be very underperforming. It would be very, especially the end sprinkler down at the end. And he would say, what's the deal? Well, you know something, there is some science. There is a little bit of science to sprinkler irrigation installation. You kind of have to know a few things. Number one is you have to know how many gallons a minute, the size of pipe you're using. How many gallons a minute is water going to go down that tube? Number two is how much pressure you have at the valve or at the connection point. Most residential areas average around 50 psi. Even people who are on wells generally average about 50 psi. So you can kind of figure, you know, and then how long, how far are you taking it, that particular zone, from the valve to the end sprinkler? And you'll get a thing called friction loss in that. So maybe the first head works great, but the last head that you've decided to put 150 feet downwind is not performing very well. You have not enough pipe, not enough pressure, and too long a run. And finally, you have too many sprinklers on one valve. Maybe you have a 3/4 inch pipe, which is only going to average around 9 gallons a minute, and you have seven 1/2-inch pop-up heads on there. Each head is going to use 1.8 gallons a minute at 50 psi. So if you do the math, If you do 9 divided 1.8, how many heads are optimal for that one zone? Generally, it's around 4 to 5. You've put 8 on there, so you can't ask unless you put some kind of pressure compensating filter nozzle on it or something. It's not going to perform. So less heads per zone will oftentimes much more performance. You may have to add another valve or two in order to get proper performance and proper coverage. That's where we end up seeing dead areas and hot summer lawns and stuff, because they're underperforming and they don't do what they call a head-to-head coverage very well. Okay, my other question always got, especially when I was handing people an estimate and they would grab their heart, or grab their heads and go, wow, this is a lot more than I thought it was going to be. Many people ask me, why is landscaping so expensive? And you have to remember, it's not just plants and dirt. There's so much when it comes to a professional landscape business and where the costs are built into that. People don't go into a landscape business not to make a profit. So first of all, you have the cost of the materials, and those materials are always going up, especially right now. Then you have the business side of it. You have profit margin, administrative costs, people costs, vehicle and equipment costs and maintenance, fuel for gosh sakes nowadays, and you push those two together onto an estimate and you hand it to a client. That's why I'm here to definitely encourage you, if you have the wherewithal, to do it yourself. It's almost a 50% discount right out of the gate financially, but it's $150 add-on for your energy and your stick-to-itiveness, perseverance to get the job from landscape zero to landscape hero. Just saying. All right, finally, number 5, and that is, I love gardening, Coach. I really do. And my current career really sucks ass. I just don't like it anymore. How can I get to be as creative and as talented as what you've done over the past few decades so that I can get out there and maybe start my own landscape design business or landscape design and build type of business? And for those people who are thinking that, try this. First of all, education. You may like plants, you may like gardening, but are you educated in the field of ornamental horticulture? You can get a lot of stuff, courses online, and you can do all kinds of things at a college classroom, but many times it's going to be practical application. You will never learn more than actually doing. So maybe taking on some part-time work somewhere on a weekend at a nursery, or you can go to college in the evening and get some ornamental horticulture underneath your belt. All these things dovetailed back into your energy and desire will certainly boost your capabilities of doing a career change. Also, online courses, hey, just like the ones that I have in Homescape 1.0 right here, can teach you 95% of everything you need to be a successful DIY homeowner landscaper or a professional. So considering the environment you're in, consider the competition that is out there, consider the need that is needed in your general area. Remember, landscaping is all very local and regional, generally within a county, but sometimes more counties, depending on the size of your county. Consider your current skill set and what level of skill do you really need. Most of the time for our green industry, professionalism is the cornerstone of really having a good business. Don't be a hack. Get good equipment, good vehicles, and good people around you, and your professional reputation will grow exponentially. It really will. Hey guys, that's my top 5 questions. Why is my plant dying? How come I can't get this plant to grow over here? Why is irrigation not working? Why is landscaping so expensive? And how can I get to be a landscape designer or contractor. Those are my top 5. If you guys have any questions, I'm only an email away. You can find the email right here and certainly over on the website. Thanks for taking a few minutes. As always, to your landscape success, hopefully I'll see you in warmer weather next Friday. Don't forget to check out the podcast and the plant of the week this week. You guys take care. Bye for now.